and welcome to our program today on consensus decision making. My name is Jim Coles, and I'm the Executive Director of Columbus Area Labor Management Committee.
And I'm Meredith Porterfield, Program Manager for Columbus Area Labor Management Committee.
This video is part of our continuing series on problem-solving tools, and it looks at the process we recommend to groups for making decisions, and that is making them through consensus. We use consensus decision-making because it's an opportunity to involve everybody in the decision-making process. It's a decision that everybody has discussed and arrived at, and everyone in the room agrees with, not just something that's been forced on them by one or a few people. As a result, we get a greater commitment to that decision that they've developed. It replaces win-lose decision-making with a win-win process, and as a result, we get stronger and better decisions. Every group member has a better understanding of what's being discussed, and as a result, there are more perspectives, more ideas that are brought out as everyone participates in that discussion. We get better support for the outcomes because they have had that opportunity to participate, and we don't move on from consensus until everyone agrees with the decision that's being made. We need to first develop a definition of what consensus is with your group, because there's a lot of different thoughts out there about what consensus means. Our definition is a group has reached consensus when everybody in the group has had the opportunity to influence the outcome. They've been heard if they wanted to be. And they agree that the decision is the best alternative for the group at that time. May not have been their first choice, but it's very important that if you're going to have a good decision, that everybody in the group be ready to support it. Not just live with it, but support it. Want to see it carried out and put into play, and they're willing to go back and sell it to their constituents. Then, and only then, do we have consensus. All group members have had the opportunity to gather information, present ideas, and discuss the issues. What we really want to try to avoid is this concept you've probably seen, the meeting after the meeting. It happens in the hallway, by the water cooler, maybe in the parking lot, when people get together and start talking about what the other group members said we had to do. If it's them versus us, you don't have a decision that you're ever going to be able to implement. Avoid that by really working through and coming to consensus. That means as we work through this process, everybody has to have an open mind. They've got to listen to what's being said and consider all of the possible alternatives. Get all of the assumptions out in the open so they can be discussed. We can gather information if we need to, using other problem-solving tools to find out what's really going on or test our ideas. The consensus process encourages diverse viewpoints. As everybody has a chance to participate in the discussion, have their ideas and their thoughts heard, everybody then becomes a part of that process, and we have a greater strength from that diversity of viewpoints. Above all, we want to avoid groupthink. Groupthink is when the group just goes along with an idea. Somebody says something, a few people seem to agree with it, and other group members say, maybe that is what we ought to do, maybe that's the best way. No, if you don't agree, don't go along. That's a very important part of consensus. In fact, we've seen some groups that have appointed what they call their devil's advocate. That devil's advocate's job is just to argue. If he feels the group is coming to consensus too quickly, to begin to throw out other ideas, or to argue with the validity of the ideas that they're coming up with, just to get people to think more about what's going on. The more time you spend with it, the harder you work at consensus, the better your decisions will be.
Sometimes a group thinks that people hold out for support on whatever it is that the group is working on. That's usually a rarity. When somebody does do that, it's really important to listen to what they have to say, simply because they may be having some ideas that the group hasn't considered. Something else that can be done too is just suggest to them ask them how the group needs to proceed. That sometimes helps to push things along, and it's just a really good idea because there may be some additional ideas that you can get from those people. Another thing that's important too is, and this is particularly important when a group first starts out or when they feel it's taking too long to come to consensus, is that groups will revert back to traditional ways of trying to solve problems. And those ways are like voting, compromising, making deals. Those are win-lose scenarios. Remember, we're trying to work on something that's a win-win scenario. Avoid heated debates. We're not trying to have a game as far as who can debate the other person. Just know that you need to stop when you get into that situation. Maybe you need to take a break. One of the biggest things that helps groups is just getting more information, and that might be something you want to do as far as a group is concerned. It'll give you more information and help you proceed with whatever it is that you're trying to solve. Now, not all decisions are going to be quick and easy. Some may take a while. It may be that it's going to take a while to get more information, or maybe you're going to have to do some additional problem solving that's going to take a while. But keep in mind, all decisions need to be reviewed. Once you finalize your decision, you need to set a specific time frame when you want to review your decision. It may be 6 months, maybe a year, but just remember, not all decisions are cut in stone. And usually when you remove that block, it helps groups too as far as coming to consensus. Make sure you hear from all group members. Remember, silence does not mean consensus. Everybody must be heard on the particular topic that you're working on before you leave it. It may be that you want to do a round robin situation where you go from one person to another person. Just don't assume that you have consensus because somebody hasn't said anything. You need to make sure, like I said, that you've heard from everybody before you leave the topic. Another thing is consensus can be a little bit more difficult in the decision-making process, but the outcome can be so much better simply because it allows groups to examine problems more thoroughly, and it also helps groups come up with a lot of different ways of trying to solve the problem. So that's the end of our presentation for today. Thanks for watching.